So great to be here with you. I hope you're having an amazing day. I really do. Let's get this started on Thanksgiving. If you want to just hang out with us, you're welcome to hang out. But this is a gathering for those who don't have a lot of family around you. You do here at the interview room. We're so grateful to call you friends and to share some ideas with you. Hopefully you had a great meal. We did. Buddy did. That little turkey ate the turkey. We've got a lot of folks out there that are just getting into this. And you know, it's always about each other. Our whole program, this whole channel, this time of the year, as you know, last year we had almost a 4-hour marathon on New Year's with Dr. Gary. And, you know, the feedback was so positive from all of you guys, and just so many amazing comments about how fun it was to hang out, you know, with the interview room on New Year's Eve. And when we watched the ball drop, and, you know, and Karen and I are always conscientious of, you know, those, how blessed we are and how blessed all of us are to maybe have a moment like this if we don't have a lot of folks, you know, our family surrounding us. Our family is not, you know, right next door, obviously. And so it's Karen and I and Buddy and for this year, and Karen made an amazing Thanksgiving dinner. And she was like, you know, working all morning, all day last night. I mean, and it just came into, you know, total fruition this morning. And when I walked out into the kitchen and she had all the stuff going, and she had different, you know, compartments of, you know, places where you get, you know, the stuffing and the turkey and the yams and all of that stuff. And I was just so appreciative of, the hard work that she put into it. And I know many of you feel the same way about your wives. Um, and I know I've got a dear friend in here, John, who he lost his wife recently. And I know he's out there, celebrating himself and on his own. And it's just, I just think it's important for all of us to have an opportunity like this, to kind of get together and just, spend some time talking about, the things you want to talk about. So if you, in your comments, if you throw, a question mark across the comment, I'll pull it up and, we'll have a talk. So in the poll, the consensus in totality from everybody right now, the first conversation everybody wants to talk about is summer. And who would not want to talk about summer wells, especially around this time of the year? And yesterday I put that, if you haven't heard it yet, go listen to it about that phone call where Don had called me, within, a couple of days after I was in Tennessee. And the backstory to that is I was trying to, get together with him. I had met with, Miss Robin. I had met with with Candace. Grandis hid out from me, and Don hid out from me. And I was actually back up in Franklin, Tennessee. We had left Rogersville, and I was sitting in my, driving in my car when he called me. And when he called me, I pulled off to the side of the road, and that conversation that you're hearing, I saw the number coming in and I recognized it immediately. I turned on the recorder so that it would be memorialized 4 years later. Here we are. And when you eat that kind of conversation, what I mean by that is when you have those types of conversations, you eat every morsel of the minutia details that were being spoken at that moment. And that's what that call is all about. And if you listen to the totality of what Don was saying there and how he was saying it, with what is known today and what's not known today, it does cause us one more time to question what's really going on here. And recently I was asked about, the situation going on up the street, 9 miles away, whose property that is, who, et cetera. Quite frankly, I don't care where the tip came from, ever. Citizens solve crimes. Again, we always talk about this. Police officers, detectives, investigators just have to be open to the voice of the public. And once that voice is heard, then investigators need to act. If they don't act, then again, they're getting stuck down into, this world of, well, we know everything, therefore, it is what it is. So seeking justice. Has Buddy had enough turkey? Yes. Yes, Buddy. Okay, two things about Buddy. And thank you for the super cool question. That little hot dog will eat anything that's not nailed down, right? As you all know, Jack Russell's, and there he is above me, are the kind of guys that if they can get into something, they're going to do it. They are absolutely going to do it. And so I had he was standing next to me and or sitting next to me while we were eating our Thanksgiving meal. And next thing you know, his two paws are up on my knee, on my leg. You guys know the drill. And I look over and I'm like, "What's up with you?" And he just gives you those eyes. Those eyes are like, "Hey, I'm new here in the neighborhood. Haven't eaten in weeks. Would love to have something if you could spare it." And I thought to myself, "Oh my gosh, he's killing me over here. You're killing me, Griswold." And so, of course, Karen's like, "Don't give him any table food." And I'm weak. I'm weak. And so I stuck a piece and was talking to Karen, kind of, you know, taking her over here on this side, and I'm, slipping it over here on this side, and she looks over me and goes like, "Please." I said, I know, it's his fault." And so I deflected like Don. I pushed everything, out to the side. I tried to, get around it, but I gave in. I gave in. Deborah, has anyone considered that a concerned family member might have taken or had someone take Summer to place her in a loving, safe home? It was shocking to see the conditions in the child's bedroom. That question has come up so many times, uh, Deborah, right? And you know what? That you never take anything off of the table, but somebody coming in there and kidnapping a child potentially off of the property to give her a better home. Yeah, it sounds great, but statistically, very rare, very rare. And so, you know, I would say that's a great thought, and it's a thoughtful thought. But as a whole, no, I don't see that as the scenario here. Through Buddy Redden, but yeah, I did, unfortunately. Uh, oh, I did not know that coloring. I had no idea. I had no idea. Interesting. Thanks for being on. Any updates on Rachel Hansen? I still think about her. You know what, Surf? We do too, and we have been in contact with the family, and they said that the police were still investigating it, and that they were looking at potentially somebody in the boyfriend's family. So we took a step back. But yes, her story is very important, and it's still out there for sure. So I hope that helps answer that question. You know what I'm going to try to do? Let me see if I can put a link up. Because I've never had one of the shows where you can call in, but I also know that Josh and Gary, I invited them, and at any time they may pop in. They're out there, doing their thing with their family right now. So I invited them up here. Justice pending. Have you kept in touch with Mary? And I think of her often, and just rewatched your interview with her and Jeannie. Happy Thanksgiving, and happy Thanksgiving to you. And thank you so much for that question. Yes, I talked to Mary day before yesterday, and she and her husband and her family are doing well. She's the one that told me that Donnie has been avoiding the media and other family members, including the situation around the most recent search. Apparently, TBI, according to Mary, was also trying to get hold of Donnie. And at the time I had spoken to Mary, she had told me that they were unsuccessful at that point. However, she, couldn't 100% confirm it, but she said it's, pretty solid because all the family members were called and asked, have you talked to him? And apparently he's been laying low. She last saw him at her father's funeral. His dad died, and there was a big conversation about the house. He thought he was going to get the house, etc. And apparently that's not the case. So yes, I have talked to Mary, and if we should get her back up here, don't you think? And here's my brother John. Would you like to spend some time talking about the Matthew Checky case? You know what? I will, John, but maybe not today as a whole. But yes, absolutely at some point. In fact, if anybody is interested in that, they can go see Brandon Wilson down there. But the poll tonight overwhelmingly was Summer. Do you think the new sheriff will help in the Summer Wells case? You know what? Whenever there's a change, that is always a high probability. When the Cold Case Foundation went in another case, that was because of the invitation of the chief, and there was tremendous amount of success there. And that was in the Michael Vaughn case. So let's cross our fingers. I've also been in contact with Seth Rogers, who's reached out to the Cold Case Foundation to help assist him in that particular circumstance as well. So, we'll see. As you guys know, there are over 200 experts from around the world. Our, executive director used to be John Douglas. Now it's Greg Cooper, who started the foundation as a whole. And by the way, the foundation as a whole started with, it was originally called the Institute of Investigative Science. And we invited, certain people to come to the table and to, have a conversation about, their skill sets. And now it has grown to over 200 experts from around the world. So we'll see. Under your scars, why are they at Van Hill? That is a great question. That's the mystery, right? That's the mystery. But if you listen to Don's call that I put up last night, it's really interesting that he makes a couple of comments in there about, down the road, that kind of stuff. Who knows? Who absolutely knows at this point? But they're saying like there was a pig farm and, all this other stuff. And people, have responded about, can a body be, destroyed in a pig farm? The answer is yes. Sometimes if farmers don't get pigs out, if they pass away in a larger, scenario in a pig pen or something like that, then within a couple of days, quite frankly, a pig can devour a body. They don't like the enamel of the mandible and the jaws and the teeth. So those items may be left over, and maybe that's what the cops are doing. It all depends on how much dirt they took out of certain areas up there. You guys want to see what a pig farm looks like? Let me ask you that. Are you interested in seeing something like that? Because I was prepared for that answer or that question. And yes, they will eat everything. 100%. but it takes time. Okay. And let me show you why that is the case. So I went and visited a pig farm recently. What a great conversation on Thanksgiving. And I want to show you that video that I made. This is a pig farm nearby. And each one of these little houses holds hundreds and hundreds of pigs. Literally. And you're going to see, because I'm going to take you inside. Now, what's the correlation here? This is an industrial pig farm. They have almost 300,000 pigs on this particular pig farm. Okay. And if somebody, let's say, did not get one of the piglets that accidentally died within sight of the pens of these pig farms, the rest of the pigs would devour that body once it started to decomposition. And they will eat everything, every bone, everything. Okay. And yes, real, I see the smell is horrific. In fact, Karen made me throw away my shoes when I got back. Now, I want to give you a heads up because Karen was like, ooh, that's really gross that you went over there and went in there. And I was like, well, yeah, can I have a ham sandwich? She's like, oh my goodness. Anyway, so let me show you the outside of this. So each one of these farms or each one of these houses here, that's the grain, that comes down there, or the pig feed or whatever it is that they eat. And when you go into this thing, it's like, oh my gosh, it's so gross. So I'm going to give you a heads up. Karen was like, oh my gosh, they all look like Buddy. And I was like, yeah, I know. I saw one dude over there. I was like, hey, what are you doing? And I don't know. It's rough seeing animals in this situation, but anyway, so let's keep moving here. So I wanted to show you, what a real pig farm looks like. And by the way, this is just one section of the pig farm. It looks nothing. And by the way, I'm not saying that Summer's body was in that pig farm at all. I'm not saying that. Okay. However, I thought it would be interesting to show you guys what this looks like, what one really looks like. Okay. So this is the real deal here. This is where you get your bacon, your sausage, all that stuff comes from facilities like this. Okay. That said, the other question I had is, and I had asked and spoken to Mary at length about, hey, did you guys grow up anywhere near farms? And she says, well, yeah, I mean, Donnie, our dad had a farm, but we had pigs, but it wasn't, we were raising pigs. We just had pigs. And so that was the extent of knowledge that she shared with me about, what type of knowledge would anybody have from 110 Ben Hill? And it sounded very limited. However, they did raise pigs. Okay. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if the knowledge was, and I also know what, pigs would do. So if you see how this, unfolds here, you look at all of these these, I'm just going to call them pig hangars. Okay. And within inside of these hangars are literally thousands and thousands of pigs. Okay. And it was stinky, very stinky. Okay. Very stinky. In fact, as I told you, Karen made me throw my shoes away. When I got back, they had all kinds of, I guess, pig poop on the bottom of my shoes, so I had to toss them. Okay, so here's the inside of these, places. And if you think about this, each one, and by the way, there were a couple of suspects who had escaped when we came through the doors. They were running down the path, and you'll see them here. And I was like, run, go, get out of here. I was rooting for these guys, to make it out, but they didn't. They did not. So if you look at them, you see all these little pig pens, and there's probably 40, 50, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 15, or let's say 15 plus pigs in each one of these pig pens. And they go all the way down. But you see, they can get, and they're fighting with each other. They're like bopping each other. And everybody I saw in here, I just kept seeing Buddy, and I was like, oh my gosh, and you're right. Old McDonough had a farm here for a day. And it was really interesting to see. But I was talking to the people, and I asked them, I said, well, what happens when one of these, animals, if they, die in the pig pen? And he told me straight up, he said, they'll be gone. The other pigs will devour them. And I was like, whoa. Okay, so that's a possibility on the score sheet, for lack of a better term. Okay. So you get a good look at him. You see that one dude down at the very end down there? He's the felon. He's the escapee. I don't know if you can see him. He kicked in one of the doors apparently and got away. And I'm going to show you on another one here. Let this run for a second. And you can see, they're bumping each other all day, and they're snorting and, just yelling at each other. Here they are. See those two guys in the middle? Those are a couple of felons on the way. No, real ICU. Great question. No, they will not eat the clothing. They will not eat the clothing. Great comment or question. So you see these two suspects right in the middle. As I came through the door, they took off down the hallway there. And I announced myself that we had a search warrant. And we throw in a flashbang, and those two were down the road there. And so this is a great question. Hogs and pigs, I've been told, hogs are really mean. But, pigs like this, these are obviously, brought up for your Thanksgiving ham. But hogs are a different story. I mean, those guys will come at you, they'll fight you. And if you, were to fall into a hog pen, they'll try to take you out. Is that true? Is that true as a whole? Caroline says hogs are fierce. Yeah. Well, yeah, great question. What is the difference between them? What's the difference between them? Hogs are meaner. And if you get caught anywhere near the hogs, you got to switch. Wow. They have giant teeth, Caroline says. Interesting. Okay. So these two guys, whoops, sorry about that. These two guys, the felons, running down the street there, were trying to get away. But so we're gonna go into that other one here in a second again. So just think of what kind of person, if this was the scenario, right? There's a lot of rumors, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know. It's all speculation right now about what's going on out there on that other property. But think of the mentality somebody must have had if in fact they do find evidence in a pig pen or a hog pen of this little girl. I mean, think about that. The cruelty to even contemplate that as a possibility. I don't know. I can't wrap my mind around that. Especially not on Thanksgiving, but at the same time, if in fact they are out there searching in places like this, okay, it does cause you to say, hey, wait a minute. What kind of person are we dealing with in totality here? That is really, evil. That's really evil. See those escapees down there, those felons. They kept looking like they wanted to come at me, because the door was right behind me. And I said, not today, gentlemen. Do you feel lucky? I know what you're asking me. Did he fire 5 or 6? And they were looking at me like, I got to know, man. I got to know. And this guy right there on the far left, those two dudes on the far left, when I spun my camera around to those two guys, I thought, oh my gosh, there's Bud. Get out of there. And, my heart just sank. I'm not I don't know what to say. But if you look at these two dudes, see those two guys over there? They're looking at me like, hey, what's up? Can you get me out of here? I would have taken them. Look how their ears fold over like Bud's. Look at Bud's picture up there. And when I came home and I showed Karen the video, she was like, "Oh my gosh, they're all Buddy. Look at them all." And then she goes, "Okay, I can't do this anymore. I can't watch. I got to go." And I was like, I know. I got to show you these two guys. And I showed her these two guys, and my heart melted. So this is what it looks like in a real-time pig farm. And so when we're talking about understanding what the probability versus possibility and the possibility versus probability, is it possible? The answer is yes. These guys, if you were to fall in there and let's say had a heart attack and nobody caught you, okay, within 3 days, these guys would take care of it. Every one of these guys. So there you go. And there's that one dude to the far left again. He's kind of hiding out over there. So there you go. I thought you guys would find that interesting. What do you think? And that third bin, see that one dude back there on the third? Check this guy out on he's the second one over from this picture here. Watch this one guy. He looks like a linebacker jumping in the thing. When I come back here, watch this. Check him out. See, and they're nudging each other, and there's noise, and there's stuff everywhere. But watch this one guy. He jumps. There he goes. See that guy? Watch him. Boom. That guy was nuts. That guy was absolutely, off the farm, for lack of a better term. So let's talk about probabilities and possibilities. Again, if you haven't listened to that call, I put it up there for a reason. A couple of things drive me crazy. is this idea that, we know what the authorities are doing and, tips and all this other stuff. That's all cool. That's all good stuff. However, you have to understand a couple things about the investigative techniques and the investigative process. And we're in what we would call the long term. Hang on, let me grab something. Somerwell's case right now is in what we would call the long term phase of an investigation. What does that mean? Right? It means there are various types of things going on. Okay. Because you have to understand the different phases in an investigation. And what do I mean by that? Okay. Well, the first phase in any investigation is within the first 2 hours, specifically with a child. Okay, you have 2 hours basically to get things moving. And who has those 2 hours, right? What do I mean? Well, what I mean by that is the first investigator on the scene, the first 0 to 2 hours, okay, is the most important. The 911 call comes in. The first officers on the scene immediately have to assess, is this a runaway? Is this a lost, injured child? Is there an abduction risk here? Okay. And they also have to measure quickly, what are the medical needs potentially of children? And in like Sebastian's case, for an example, his child or that child, and I call them children because they are, he has medical needs. He's autistic. He has prescriptions. And so all of these things have to be discovered within the first 2 hours. And that primary first officer on the scene, it's his or her responsibility to kind of pull that up pretty quickly, right? For the investigators that are coming. Okay. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is obviously, or is it necessary that an Amber Alert goes out, right? Does the behavioral aspects or do the circumstances trigger the requirements for an Amber Alert? Is there a vehicle involved? Anything like that? Okay. And you'll notice it took 18 hours in Summer's case for an Amber Alert. And that was only after the discussion of a vehicle. Now, where that came from, we don't know. We know that, within the first 2 hours, it wasn't put out. They did it in Tennessee within 18 hours. Okay. So the first thing they did is they threw Summer into the NCIC, National Crime Information Center. And what is that? It was the computer network nationally and internationally that all agencies have access to and all officers have access to in their MDTs in their cars, meaning their mobile terminals. So if they stop a car and there's an Amber Alert and there's information in NCIC, that information then will pop up almost immediately. Okay. And so then what's the next phase of a missing child? It's what we would call, the golden window, 24 to 48 hours. And you'll see these phases all fell into place in Summer's case. Immediately where they secure the home, the scene, they start asking, where was she last seen? And then they start treating the scene as a potential crime scene until proven otherwise. Okay. During this phase, you start to see, detailed interviews with parents, siblings, neighbors. Most of those should be and could be all recorded. The parents are separated. Typically, the family members are typically separated. And when I went up there, I met with some of the folks that were on the hill, first responders, the day it happened. And to the conversation, they were all telling me that each family member, the boys were out playing football, meaning while the cops were there, mom and dad were separated, and grandma was separated. And there were a couple of detectives up on the hill that were basically providing security and watching over the family members. And so that was Don, Candace, and Grandis. But they were not, while the police were there, communicating with each other. They wouldn't let them. But they did have the ability to share thoughts, ideas, and to the first responders that were there, and remember, we're talking the first 2 hours, okay, they were raising a lot of eyebrows, for lack of a better term. And so going back to this, the golden window concept is the first 24 to 48 hours, even though it may or may not be, criminal in nature, you're still going to throw all the resources in. So the next thing that obviously starts to be activated right away is, canine units, trained dogs for air scent, trail dogs, those kind of things, and ground searches start to take place. Well, we saw that immediately in Summer's case. So within 5 days, for about 5 days, there were massive searches taking place. Helicopters, drones, divers, all of that stuff was taking place. Okay. This is all part of the protocol from the child abduction response team, right? The CARD team from the FBI. I've taught this stuff for years. Okay. So all of the boxes are being checked, looking for Summer. And so the next question that obviously came up was, okay, we've got all these things happening. Are we finding anything? Okay. And we all know right now, within the first 24 to 48 hours, that's a critical time for a lost child. Because if you do not find the child in that time, now you have to worry about other problems, i.e. exposure, is this an abduction in totality? Is the child moving, et cetera? Okay. And so if the canine units are only getting so much, okay, then it's coming to a dead end. Well, then you got to start asking yourself, okay, well, what are the possibilities there then? So from that point, you start leaning on the digital forensics evidence, i.e. cell phones, cell phone pings, tower dumps. Immediately you start getting search warrants. And this is within the first 24 to 48 hours. Okay. So by day 2, search warrants are already moving towards digital evidence. Okay. Now, what's interesting about this is, in this case, if you hear what Don tells us on that phone call, the authorities had his phones. But when you listen to Candace, who tells me down at the water hole, she had other phones that she didn't turn into the authorities. And when she told me that, you heard me say in that conversation, well, you're going to turn this into the authorities, right? TBI haven't. She goes, oh, yeah. I don't know if that ever happened, to be honest with everybody. right? We don't know that. I do know, though, if she didn't do that, they will still find it. Trust me. Okay, there are ways of finding those phones. And you'll notice in the Sebastian Rogers case, within this first 24 to 48 hours, they immediately started dumping phone towers, social media, etc. So this is kind of the protocol that we're talking about here, right? All right. So then what else is in the pocket? What's moving at the same time? Well, I know within the first couple of 3 or 4 days, the card team was up on that property in 110 Ben Hill Road. And the conclusion has never been revealed, but I know that they didn't feel that it was a stranger abduction. Okay? Because the evidence wasn't showing at that time that it was a stranger abduction. So the conclusion was somebody had to have access to the property. And what's that mean? And I've made many videos about this. And I have not left that house. Not yet. For a variety of reasons. Okay. And we can get into those. So going back to the checklist of what the authorities are going through and the phase that we're in now, okay, immediately the first thing that they're going to sweep is any RSOs, any offenders in the area within a 2 to 5 mile radius of our home. And what was interesting is Candace, as you recall in the video and interview with her, she points to the holler or, across the tree line from her house and says, yeah, there's a guy within a mile from here as an RSO. Okay. So once the card team shows up, they do a behavioral assessment on everybody involved, and simultaneously the boys, the children, are separated from the family because they're considered at that point a potential at risk. For two reasons. One, initially in the investigation, do they know what they've got going on? No, not yet. And so they try immediately, to get information. Sorry, hang on just for a second. Karen is asking me to do something. They immediately start to ask information about, where they were, what they saw, etc. And I know those interviews took place spontaneously up on the mountain. I know that for a fact. Okay. Now, the next thing then is NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and NCIC and the FBI card team are correlating now. Okay, what's going on here? How can we assist? Okay. And so all those things are in motion. And this is within the first 48 hours. Then we get into the first week. Okay. If no results are coming in, i.e., where's Summer, then the next thing that starts to move is polygraphs, voluntary statements come in. Let's talk about it. And both families in Rogers and Summer were asked both of those times to come in and take polys. I've been told different things about the polygraphs on the Summer Wells case. In fact, Don told me directly that Candace did not pass hers. He said he did. I don't know if that's true or not, but he said he did. I don't know the results on the other case. Okay, so I'm going to stay focused on Summer here. Okay. Within the first week, this is when all the search warrants for phones, computers, vehicles, the house, everything starts to take place. In the Wells case, um, the information was instantaneous because they walked the authorities. Candace walked the authorities, essentially did what I did and videotaped it. I videotaped it to create a record, because if it turns out to be something different, then that record will be utilized in a court proceeding. There's no question about it. Immediately they start, in the first week, looking at reverse 911 information, calls coming in and out of the house, out of the cell phones. And then the authorities start to deal with this massive media blitz. Okay, a couple of things right up front is they had the TBI step in. But if you remember correctly, going back, they also had the captain of the search and rescue. And they weren't telling the public very much information. That has pluses and minuses. My personal opinion is they should have given the public more information. Okay? What more information? Because there was a massive organized searching effort going on within the first 5 days of Summer's case. I mean, they had thousands of volunteers. They searched thousands of acres. Okay. And they had dogs, they had everything. And what came out of it, right? Well, that came out of it was the rumor that the dogs went down the hill, to the road. That was it. That's what came out of it. Well, this is the kids' playground. From an investigative analysis aspect, it's okay, well, what did they find in the house? Because the last time this child was seen, the mother said she went into the house. So you got to stay there first before you can put her out in the yard. You have to take her out of the house into the yard in an investigative phase. You have to eliminate the idea, did she even make it into the house? And if so, why is the mother saying she was in that house? Okay, you see where that's going, the steps? Okay. And then you then can measure that against all of the other information that's coming in about, the 911 call. Mother was out on a walk. What does that mean? Now, you're hearing rumors that Summer was seen in the back of a truck, by tree trimmer guys. Okay. Well, how does that all occur when mother says she was last in the basement and she's putting that on the boys? Meaning, where's your sister? Oh, she's down in the basement, Mom. She went down in the basement. And you'll notice that's where I wanted to go. And that's why I went down in that basement. Because this is the narrative that they're creating. And if it's true, it's true. If it's not, well, then we'll figure that out. Okay. And once we got down there, within the first couple of weeks, the questions were arising, were coming to the surface was, well, how did she get out of that door? We heard there was a blue couch blocking the door. We heard that she couldn't open the door. Okay. And so all of these things start to come up in conversations, and they're still in existence. And so in that door, or in that conversation, I asked Dawn, well, how does she open the door? And is she capable? Well, and you hear him immediately, shift that back to the boys. Well, I told them, don't ever, keep an eye on her and all this other stuff. And so, the door in an investigative analysis aspect, you want to write on a piece of paper on a board, how's this door come into play? And where does this blue couch come from? Where's that conversation come from, right? Because Don has said, and Candace has said, there was a blue couch down there blocking the door because they were worried about her going out that door. So they locked the door. And you'll notice when Candace took me through the tour of the house, what did she do? She turned right around, walked right back through that door, and locked it. Okay? So is that a habit pattern? Is that a life pattern? I don't know. Still a mystery. Could Summer get out that door? I don't know. Did she have the ability to open that door? I don't know. What I do know is Candace standing at the door saying, and you watch her in the video down in the basement, the first thing she needed to point out to me was, I don't know if the door was open or locked. So my question was, and I didn't say anything, my question in my mind was, how many other investigators had asked her that question, or how many other people had asked her that question? And what were her answers in all these other conversations? Okay, so now we're going to go into week 2 to 4. And in week 2 to 4 is what we call an investigative analysis transition phase. Okay. And let me give you some ideas on what that means. And we'll talk about the basement and all that other stuff in a little bit. But I want to get through these bullet points for you so you understand the phase that we're in right now. Okay. In the transition phase, this is where there's a scale back typically of large volunteer searches, that kind of stuff. Okay. And by the way, you'll see if you go back and look at this investigation within the first 2 to 4 weeks, we're hitting these bullet points almost like targets. Okay. And what happens here is if they find nothing in the search and rescue efforts, then the large volunteer searches are pulled back and they start shifting towards evidence-based, conversations and leads. A tip, a lead, or whatever are kind of the same. Okay. And so now you start paying attention really carefully to these forensic type of interviews. And this is where the gift of conversation comes in. This is where that phone call is critical. Because you have got to know what you're doing when you're talking to somebody potentially in the transition phase. And by the way, you'll notice that I came in weeks after the authorities had been doing their job, so as not to interfere with any of the stuff going on. So I kind of ran a parallel, hey, will you talk to me concept to Don and Candace and Miss Robin and others. And so this is where that conversation now, if we listen to it carefully, can we measure truthfulness in it to what we already know is evidence-based? Okay. We didn't know anything about the totality of his past when these conversations were taking on or being done, nor did we know what Candace's totality of her past was, i.e. injuring her own child years ago. What's the totality of Rose's investigation, her sister? And you'll notice one thing that's really interesting that I've always thought about is when you go into their house, do you see any pictures of the children on the walls? You see a picture of Rose. and her husband. But do you see family photographs outside of her Facebook, her Instagram post, and all that other stuff? But talking about the environment of safety for children, their house, where a child can self reflect, looking at the wall and seeing their picture and that kind of stuff. Okay. If have you seen any obvious pictures, okay, where a baby, a child growing up into an environment where there's security and safety, okay, they can look up and they can see images of themselves. Now, what's interesting is Candace has an image of Rose, and I asked her about it. I said, "Who is this?" And she tells me, "Well, it's my sister, my baby sister." Now, there's something there, the fact that that is so predominant in the house when you walk into that kitchen area. That's for another show, but there's something there. Okay. During this phase, the first 2 to 4 weeks, this is when you're re-interviewing, families, friends again, and you're trying to discover new information. And what you're doing is a comparative analysis against the information that you already had. And you start looking for gaps within inside of that information. And this is why I reposted the call yesterday. Because now that this other lead potential has come up, whatever it is, if anything, by the way, we don't know. Could be something, could be nothing. I can't tell you how many times I dug up rock piles. Okay. And it's nothing there. Okay. So we don't know yet until the FBI or TBI tells us what it is. But what it does tell us is that type of lead generated some resources. Okay. So maybe it's something, maybe it isn't. I don't know. We don't know yet. So let's not go down that road. But what it tells us is something is moving. Now, usually within 2 to 4 weeks in the transition phase, this is when you start seeing, the forensic processing picking up pretty rapidly. DNA, going back, searching houses. Remember, Don said the cops came back 7 or 9 times to his house. And he says it in that call. Okay. Which is typical. This is also the phase where reward funds typically start to appear. Okay. Private investigators start to come out of the woodwork, and everybody's looking for ways to drive their business. And this is all during the transition phase. Okay. And you'll notice that in the Sebastian case, for an example, Dog the bounty hunter showed up, $500,000 and $50 reward, started to come to the surface, et cetera. All kinds of things started to happen. Okay. This is when all the community organizations got together with Summer. And these are all good things, by the way, but they're predictable. Okay. And the reason they're predictable is because those of us who have worked these cases know, as proper training and procedure, what those steps are going to be, okay, and how to execute them. Okay, so now we're into what we would call the long-term investigative phase, i.e., months turn into years. Okay, and so hang on for a second. Sorry. Months turn into years. Okay. Now, during this time, the investigators are typically, there's one investigator assigned, and in this case, it would be with TBI and, of course, Detective Pruitt with Hawkins County Sheriff's Department. Okay. And there are what we would call, the best way to describe it is what I would call tip surges, where information starts to surface that may or may not be credible. However, it does start to surface. And when it does, you have to take action, i.e., the Van Hill report. Okay. Somebody said something to somebody, or et cetera, et cetera. And that would be what we would categorize as a tip surge. Where it came from, it could come from all kinds of places. The public, PIs, you just keep stacking it on top of each other. Okay. This is also the time, as we've noticed, that NCMEC will start creating age progressive photos. And we've noticed that that was right on target. Started to move, where the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children started to produce these various phases of what she would look like photos. Okay. Well, technically, now this is the time where cold case units and the FBI BAU start playing a more significant role in the investigative process, because you're now down into 2, 4, 5, 4 years, and the case is only surging forward when tips are coming in. And so what you want to do is you want to reach out to the BAU, you want to reach out to cold case investigators with experience and start saying, hey, can you guys put another set of eyes on this? Let me give you a perfect example. Chief Huff called the Cold Case Foundation. We were able to put 200 experts free of charge onto different eyes into the Michael Vaughn case. Okay. That's what I'm talking about here. And typically in this kind of situation, like private search groups start to come out even further. PI start to, again, let's emphasize this. Remember, Don kept telling me that he had a couple of PIs that were working for him in that phone call. That's really important to understand. Okay. And they had a whole bunch of information that they were directly sharing with Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Okay. That's really incredible, because maybe that's where the information came from with his people that were able to get some information, and they, planted that in. Okay. So what are the key differences now in between Sebastian's case and Summer case, right? If it's a stranger or family abduction and they've crossed the lines in any way, shape, or form, let's say with Sebastian's case, the FBI will immediately begin a more functional role and primarily take the point because they have resources. If the child's been taken across the lines, they will take the point. What's interesting here, in Summer's case, you'll notice that the FBI is assisting. But TBI and Hawkins County is still the investigative agency in totality. Why is that interesting? And why is that important? Because it leans more towards, again, the victim continuum idea about who had access to the property. And if so, if we look at that, and you guys have heard me talk about this 1,000 times, everything in Summer's case points towards low risk victim. Everything based on the environment, situation, circumstance. Now, Understand what I mean by that. I'm not saying low risk towards abuse, etc. Okay. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about the day she disappeared. All the indication was, where was she last seen? She went down the basement. Who was she last with? She was with mom. Okay. Environment, situation, circumstance. Okay. Who had access to the property? Well, Hunter says that, whether this is true or not, I don't know, but he's been interviewed by the FBI 3 times. He says, remember, Candace gets this phone call. There's a strange dude up on the property. He didn't know who he was. And that's where he throws out the name Andy. You know, he sees a text message and all that stuff. Go watch his conversation again. And Candace responds to Don, well, et cetera. So there's a question. And the investigators are trying to establish what the proper conversations were. Okay. And in there, you have a variety of different things that have surfaced. Is there somebody on the property? Don says his first subject, and he names him in that phone call. He throws, Dudley down the hill. He says, well, I don't want to get Fred Hill in trouble. He throws Fred Hill, down the hill, but then he clarifies that. Okay. So all of this mishigosh starts to show up. And then we get Jody Sue thrown into the mix. She's throwing her ex, Andy, under the bus because of domestic violence abuse. I've seen the photographs. I've talked to her many hours behind the scenes. You now have Andy who's saying, hey, I've got a alibi up the wazoo. Okay. And then you have Hunter saying, well, I thought the name was Andy, but now that has been transposed even today into Randy. Okay. I don't know what that means either. I can tell you from an investigative analysis aspect, I want to know where Summer was. I want to know what was the story that originated why she was in the basement. And then we get to Don and ask the question, just critical thinking, why did he go to the shed almost immediately down below the hill? When he's supposed to be on Messenger with his wife returning from Jonesboro, and he's on the, he's having conversation. And then you think about that for a moment. They have problems with Wi-Fi and cell coverage and all this other stuff up there in the hollers. Yet he's having a conditional conversation with his wife while responding on Messenger, right? Facebook Messenger, while responding from Jonesboro to look for his daughter. And then if you take into the consideration of the phones, Candace says she can't get out of 911 originally. She throws her phone in the back of the truck, goes and gets a second phone, and then allegedly makes a phone call to 911. And then if we throw into the mix the idea of when was that call made, Don tells us on the phone call that I put up yesterday, I thought it was around 3:30, but the authorities say it's closer to 6:30. So those are gaps. Those are gaps in the investigation. Okay. Bottom line, the first 48 hours in any missing child case is frantic. The resources laid into it are very heavy, and then it becomes slower and it becomes tip driven, right? I can't tell you how many times during the Leticia Hernandez abduction that I was working with those, who were claiming all kinds of stuff. And that was my assignment at that time. And so I had to chase down all of those leads. And I dug up, rock piles. I did all kinds of stuff. In fact, I think I got a cup. Let me show you this cup. Now, the reason I show you this is not to say, hey, look at me. The reason I show you this is because these things can get out of hand so quickly and so fast. But those bullet points that I just talked to you about and the phases of a missing child are critical. Now, here's the cup. Okay. Everybody see that? It's called Mick Rockpile. Okay. And that was my agency. This is my coffee cup. I came back to my desk and this thing is sitting there from my boss. And he goes, you've been digging up so many things, so many, places that we're going to start calling you Mick Rockpile. And I can tell you, we were getting thousands and thousands of tips. So I want to tell you how I got into this idea of why I'm not leaving the house yet. Because I believe that Summer Wells, there are only a couple of theories, right? Did she even make it back to the house? We don't know. I don't know that. I don't have the answer for that. The only persons that may or may not have an idea on that are the authorities. And TBI is not telling us right now, nor is the Hawken County Sheriff's Department, and Pruitt's not saying it, and he shouldn't. And he's doing his job. Respectfully, he's doing his job, right? Okay. However, let me give you a little hint as to my background in this type of stuff. So when our oldest son, back in about 1980, was riding his big wheel in front of our house, he, used to go down we lived near a little hill, and he would spin around on this little big wheel, and he was about 4 years old, 3.5, 4 years old. And I remember looking out a kitchen window because I was watching him. Now, mind you, this was about 1980, actually 80, 81, because he was 4. He was born in 77. Okay. I look out and I see this very large car pull up from the 70s. And I see the passenger door open. And my son is on the sidewalk right next to parallel with this passenger door. And immediately I panicked. And I ran out yelling at Ian, who, by the way, is the chairman of the economics department at UNLV today. He is a doctor of economics. But at 4 years old, I witnessed somebody try to get my son into a car. And he took off, the suspect. And I was dumb at that time where I couldn't get his license plate. Why am I telling you this story? Because that day, I chased the car, and he got away. But that day, I made a deal. I made a deal with God and the universe. If you give me the chance, I will hunt these guys down for the rest of my life. Well, about a year later, I'm in the police academy in San Diego, 12th Regional Police Academy. My first assignments on the job were patrol officer, first 2 years of my career. And then I became a vice detective, 84 to 86. Okay. I started in 1982. I became a vice detective. And then in 1986, I was transferred into the Canine Bureau. And I had a dog named Irk the Jerk and a second one named Sando, who got me in trouble. And so for 4 years, I was a dog handler. And that's this picture right there on the wall with Irk. Okay. And Irk ended up dying on duty, by the way. And so I was in transition, and my supervisor said, "Hey, there's an opening in the Bureau. You've been working, you did some searching for Leticia Hernandez," because I was a dog handler at the time. And I was called out to search for her in some woods. And then Irk died, in an incident, which is another day. And my supervisor says, you would be really good in the Bureau. I think you should put in for it. Long story short, I applied. You have to go through this process. You have a board, you got to talk to people, and then they select you to be in what we called the crimes of violence, which was robbery, homicide. And that's where John Lamb, I met John, all those guys. And I was mentored by amazing detectives. One of them, Dan Aarons, was my first partner that I worked with, who is an amazing human being. I've had him on this program. John was one of our sergeants. John had worked homicide for years. And I got this opportunity to learn about, how things work. Well, at the time, we had Leticia Hernandez, January 16th, 1989, had been kidnapped and abducted. Okay. And my boss came to me and said, "Hey, they're at the time in San Diego County," and John will remember this, as will Bob. Bob is another great cop. He's a chief of police also. He knows me. Long story short, we had this opportunity to kind of figure out what was going on in San Diego County. They had created a task force. It was called the San Diego Homicide Task Force, and they were investigating 43 body dumps off of the Interstate 8 of prostitutes, et cetera. And they had believed that maybe, there was cops involved and all this other stuff. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on. Well, because I had worked Vice, two of the girls that they found were one of the last girls I talked to. Her name was Valisa Ray Joy, and Gentry. They wanted to have me, look at some things. And so they pulled a report that I had made, long story short, on a gal by the name of Frederica Goldstein. Her street name was Freddie. And I had written this report that she was, almost strangled and thrown out of a car in a small MG. Well, long story, it ended up being a guy named Porter. You can look him up, Ronald Porter. And they ended up taking him down, et cetera. Well, the DA on that was a guy named Mark Patine and Ed Miller back in the time. back in the day. And at the same time that was occurring, we had in San Diego County about 5 or 6 kids that had been murdered and or were believed to have been abducted. And so the question was, had the suspect changed his MO? And is it possible that we were dealing with 2 killers at the time, one for kids, or could it have been the same guy? Because some of the cases overlapped before they caught him. So my boss came to me. He says, guess where you're going? I said, I have no idea. What happened? What did I do? Okay. Well, I end up going to a crash course through the FBI with the FBI and criminal behavior analysis. They called CIA is actually what it's called, criminal investigative analysis. And my expertise was the investigation of pedophiles who choose children for sexual gratification during homicide. That's what it was called. And as Karen always says, we don't get invited to very many dinner parties. So I get this expertise and I come back and I start doing, the analysis on some of these cases that were, taking place. Long story short, okay, it was almost like full circle. To me, God was like saying to me, remember our deal? And there I was, doing things involved in cases dealing with dead children who were abducted and murdered by the same kind of guys, I think, that probably tried to get my son into the car. And who knows what the outcome would have been had he done that. So I've always felt that anything involving children was a divine calling. And that I don't do this stuff personally for any other reason other than I want to find Summer Wells. I don't have a business. I'm not throwing the cops into left field, right field. I don't have I'm not throwing stuff up on Facebook to make me look good. I don't do that. Okay. But I can come to the table with receipts. And when I say that, I don't say it in arrogance or not humility. The old saying we're proud of our humility. I say it because it's my fabric of my personality, of my training, my experience. It's who I am. Okay. If you look at there's a program called The Greatest Save or KinderVision. It's the largest national safety program in the United States and the oldest, by the way, for training and teaching children how to stay safe from strangers. I started that with a guy by the name of Doug Sebastian back in 1991. And Raleigh Fingers is the national spokesperson for that program. I have never made a penny on that program. Not a penny. And the curriculum for children is being taught in the schools in Alabama and Florida, and it's funded by the state for curriculum. I was on thousands of Scooby-Doo videos through Warner Brothers Studios, where there was a commercial at the end where I was the spokesperson about keeping children safe. I was on the Oprah Winfrey Show as a national expert on child safety. Okay. But here's the weird part. Okay. I didn't ask for any of that. And I don't go around asking to speak at CrimeCon. I don't have to do that. I don't. Why? Now, if I was invited, of course I'd go and I would do it. But I don't put myself in to do it. Does that make sense? You have to put yourself into it, meaning you got to write why you would be a good speaker and then they select you. No, I don't operate that way. I don't operate that way. I operate on Thanksgiving hanging out with 780 people here in the chat. It doesn't have to be 10,000 people. It just has to be you to talk about her. That's enough for me. Okay. Now, if we think about this, I also predicted back in 1995 what was coined, and it was my prediction of the advent of the white collar intellectual predator. And if you think about that, in 95, I did a predictive analysis as part of my training that we would see an uptick with the advent of the internet of violence and SA towards children in this country. And guess what? We're here. And we are now in a new phase, and seeing how we're just hanging out, chit-chatting, we're in a new phase right now. Okay. And that new phase is quickly coming upon us because the DSM-5, everybody knows what the DSM-5 is, right? And the DSM. I'll bet you didn't know this, though. Did you know in the DSM-4, pedophilia was a mental illness? It was a mental illness. The DSM-5 they have redefined it. Look it up. And the reason for that is they have now in the psychological field, and I wish Dr. Gary was here. Okay. They have broken it down into, well, they're not acting on the impulse. Okay. Thank you. Here's a doc here. Awesome. Thank you. Yes, it's still under there. And help everybody understand on what that means. And the bottom line, what it means is there are now certain conditions for if somebody just has the impulse, they may be attracted to, children and a lot of yada, yada. Okay. But they don't act on it. And until they do, then therefore, we can't basically diagnose them as, problematic to society. Where does that come now into the circle correctly? That's correct, Mountain Dog Mom. They're called MAPS. Well, I'm going to make a prediction. If we stay on this road, and I made a prediction in 95, because I did the math. Okay. And I'll tie this together if you want. If you don't, that's okay too. But I'll tie it together in this idea that because we have blurred the lines of, all this other stuff, who is what, fluid, et cetera, Okay. We've opened the window to this idea that anything goes. Now, I want to tell you something about where we're headed. In 95, I went out and did a survey. It was 93 to 95, all those years. And I was gathering data. And I went to all the girls and in the evening and said, "Hey, what's going on? Yada, yada." Okay. And they were telling me that the Johns were becoming more and more violent. A lot more physical stuff, et cetera. And I asked myself back then, I said, wow, what's causing this? What's going on here? So I'll just throw a question out there right to our audience. Remember that trench coat guy, that creepy guy? And I know you women know who I'm talking about. Okay. I once interviewed a guy who was abusing, and he used to hang out at the deep end in the swimming pool. And he would wait for the children to come by holding the railing of the swimming pool, the coping there, trying to make their way through at the deep end. He would sit in the deep end with his feet in the pool. And then the little kids would come up and they'd have to pass him. So he would help them. And what he would do is put his hands under the water. And he did that to hundreds and hundreds of children. And then he would turn and the parents would go, "Thank you for helping," not realizing that he had done something inappropriate. And he did this for years. Okay. Now you take that mentality, okay, of deception and the mask and everything, and then you ask yourself, okay, well, who is like that? Well, that's creepy guy, the guy with the trench coat, he's blah, blah, surprise. Okay. Where did that guy go today in our society? Where is that guy? He's not in the parks anymore. He's not on the streets anymore. What happened to that guy? So back in the day, okay, I asked myself, where is this guy and why are the Johns becoming more violent? Because what they were saying was the normal customers, and these are the women of the evening, were not coming out on the street. They were getting this crazy man. So my predictive analysis was that crazy man was now engaged in an intellectual dialect for his victim in a chat room, in a computer, on a computer screen. But he could not compete with the intellects who were the doctors, the lawyers, the judges, all these guys, the brain surgeons. And so this person was forced into a voyeurism role with frustration, kind of like a Brian Koberger. They're forced into these other roles that they can't compete intellectually to get the victim. Like Brian Koberger, who, by the way, is complaining in the prison system over bananas and the type of food he's getting. He's a real treat. Well, what happened to that guy? Where did he go? How did he evolve? Okay. Well, next thing you know, I think it was like 1998 or where it was close to that, in that era. Chris Hansen from To Catch a Predator showed up on the scene, and they were luring these guys for hundreds of miles, and they were doctors, lawyers, judges, etc., just as I had predicted. Okay. So think about that. And my phone went off the hook. Next thing you know it, I'm on the cop talking concept with everybody. Well, we were prepared for this stuff. Here it comes. Today, the exposure of children to inappropriate behavior on average occurs between the ages of 6 and 10. Folks, we have a problem in the world. We have a problem. And I don't know what the solution is. But when we start thinking about what the results of that are, and we start doing these projections on, this other stuff that starts occurring, simultaneously, the psychiatric field is changing their definition for the predator. Think about that. The DSM-4, if you go back and look at it, clearly outlines people that are problematic with children. That has been changed in the last publication of the DSM-5. Just Google it. My question is, why? What is next for our children of this country, of the world? What happens when we totally desensitize and objectively make children objects to somebody that doesn't act on the impulse? This is the answer. Tricia, you are right. Trishy, 818. That's what's happening. And as God is my witness, maybe he gave me this channel to say just that. I don't know what the answer is. I can tell you this. We're going to see a lot more of this. And when you start looking at Summer's case and you start looking at the totality of where we're at from that to this, and you start seeing this child in her formidable years, and then you start hearing things like, parents, well, we're going to let them choose, whatever their fluidity is and all this other stuff. Okay. Just remember, it's our responsibility as a society to protect these children. It's our responsibility as a society to protect them. And I talk selfishly because of my 5 grandchildren. Karen and I are 5 grandchildren. And our other family members soon to come when Dylan gets married. It's our responsibility. It's collective. It's societal. We have to say enough is enough. We have to say, she's worth it. We have to talk to our legislators. We have to get on a local level the authorities in our local communities and say, no, enough is enough. It needs to stop. And we need to be brave about it. We need to be, stick to it till it sticks to you, they say. And we have to be, not vigilant, i.e., not out there hurting or doing anything like that, but vigilant intellectually to come to the table and say, wait a minute. What was happening before a 5-year-old child disappears out of a basement? What was happening where our society simultaneously was saying, with doctors, you're attracted to children? Yeah. But you haven't acted on it? No. Oh, okay, that's fine. Okay. That's what the DSM-5 now says. Honestly, do you believe that any of these individuals are going to sit across from a psychologist and tell them, oh, by the way, if you want to see what that looks like in terms of its process, go watch the series I did on Wesley Allen Dodd, where I interviewed him in Walla Walla State Prison on death row. You know what he told me while growing up? Because he had gone to many, many doctors. And the 4, by the way, told him, DSM-4 said, yeah, this guy's a real threat. He's a problem. And they were right. He turned out to be a serial child killer. And when I sat across from Dodd and Wesley, and you can see some of those interviews, I put them on my channel. Just go watch Wesley Allen Dodd. And I said to him, I said, Wesley, I said, help me understand, okay? Help me understand what you were telling the psychiatric community when they were initially diagnosing you early on. You know what he told me? He said, I lied to them. I knew what they wanted to hear, and I told them exactly what they wanted to hear, which resulted in this notice of no action. Yet simultaneously, he was riding around his neighborhood in a pair of shorts, exposing himself, meeting with other children, molesting them, and then ultimately, which culminated in many children dying because that fantasy just kept building. And he told me he would hang out at his window when the children were coming to school, and he would display himself inappropriately. And all the kids would laugh, ha ha. And numerous times the police came and said to his parents at the time, hey, your son's up there in the window. And they send him to counseling. And back then, the DSM was clear. These were indications of behavior that were being acted out, but they were being acted out in a voyeurism role or in an exhibition role. What they were not aware of is he was also physically acting it out on other children. I'm concerned that we're rewriting the rules, and Dr. Anna Salker would also agree with me, so that we can blur the line in the middle of the road and change the laws in this country so that maps have some leverage, and that one day pedophilia will be looked at as a mental illness, not a criminal act. You know what I mean? Because let me give you an idea here. What my 2 cents is on society right now, and by the way, this is a social issue in totality that turns into a problematic issue, a criminal issue, things that happen behind doors and windows in people's homes have now flooded out into the street. Okay. This is a simple map of 2 cars coming at each other. What happens when a collision takes place, right? What happens when this car crosses over and hits that car head on? Who's at fault? Well, we know who's at fault because of these little lines in the road. And each one of these lines in the road signifies an argument in the legislative process, because those are lines that say, okay, well, the law is we're going to have lines in the middle of the road, and if you cross over those lines, the law says you're at fault. But in our society, what we're doing in a sexual manner, by the way, is we've erased all of these lines. And so therefore, when 2 cars are going to collide in the future, i.e. maps, these other things, they're already colliding because nobody knows what's right and wrong anymore. And so therefore, guys like Wesley Allen Dodd, and here's my predictive analysis, guys like that will start seeing a desensitizing and a stigmatizing of people like me. How dare you say that? And my response is always, how dare you do that? I watched my son almost be kidnapped. I can speak with authenticity on that event. And I know what the motivation was for that event. I will tell you that there is no way on this earth, by destigmatizing this attraction aspect. I get it. We're all, attracted to something at some point. We all get it. Okay. However, there's a time and a place where children, we also have to accept both sides of that coin, that children are not driven just by one impulse. When my kids were all young, the idea of Superman and superhero were high on the list. The idea that children at 8, 9, 10, even today, dress as princesses, as all this other stuff, right? Superheroes. The fantasy for them is that lane. Why are we as a society re-engineering that fantasy? I don't understand that. And why did the DSM-5 re-engineer it for the psychological societies and the psychologists? What's going on with our society that we're doing that to our children? What's happening? Because if the possibility exists that this little girl was sold to either pay a debt or into SA trafficking, what are we doing? Without realizing we're creating the circumstances and the environment for that to happen. And so I hope that at some point things will start coming back to our senses. Because I have testified as an expert in this problem in Superior Court. And that's a really interesting thing. Any idea if Randy, who had fired and went to North Carolina, is Randy Hill, who may have helped the crew the day Summer went missing, or is it different Randy? This is the point there, right? Thank you for asking that question, Jim. I don't know if that's the guy. The guy that went to North Carolina was Jose, and he was driven there by Grandis. I don't know if Randy Hill went there separately, and if he was working as the tree trimming company, because I've been told that the tree company that was there was not the tree company, that was searched on Van Hill. They're two different companies. And if so, we still got to put Summer in the basement unless you can put Randy in the basement. Because if he's working down the hill there, right behind her house, and you'll notice the first video I did with Candace, she points exactly where they were, down there. So we have to presuppose that Summer gets out that door. Either she goes down the dog trail out to 110 Ben Hill Road, and within 10 minutes disappears, because that's kind of the time frame that Candace is looking for her, or she goes down that back hill towards the tree trimmers. If either two of those scenarios were accurate or correct, then we have to now say that all the other tree trimmers working there see Randy grab Summer and somehow disappears with her, and nobody comes forward until 4 years later. I don't know. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but that one really is a long shot. Is it possible? Of course. Is it probable? Probably not. Because Don says Dudley, the other Dotson guy, all those guys that had come forward in the beginning were first on his plate. And you can hear that in that phone call we did yesterday. That's a great question, though. Thank you. Thank you for being here to hear it. And please, would you give it to your friends, other moms, other grandparents, other friends? This is information that, should be shared to help save our children. Like everything in life, good, bad, evil evolves too. Everything evolves. I concur with that. I agree with that. But we also have to learn from history. If we don't learn from history, history will repeat itself, remember? So the evolution has to involve what we've already learned. If we don't rely on what society has already learned, then we will be categorizing people by pajamas and stars on their clothing. That's a very dangerous place to be. It's an extremely dangerous place to be. If we look at history, just at the fall of Berlin, for an example, when Stalin, when Churchill and Truman had a meeting and they divided up Germany as to East and West Berlin. And Stalin says to Truman, he says to his handlers, that Truman is a nice guy. I'm going to get along with him really well, but I'm going to be able to manipulate him. And shortly thereafter, he dropped the atomic weapon, Truman did, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to show that he wasn't weak. And he killed about 180,000 souls between the two bombs instantly. That history is important to understand because it was during those times where people were categorized into tribalism concepts. Well, I don't like that person because he doesn't have blonde hair, and I don't like those people because they have a certain religion. And here now, we're categorizing maps as people that should have empathy because they don't act on their impulses. Well, at what point do we say right is right, wrong is wrong? And we stop blurring the line in social arguments and concepts and start not categorize people as blue or red or Nazis or fascists, but as human beings who may differ from us as individuals, but they still have an individual personality trait. You may not like what they stand for in terms of what they say and how they say it or how they do it, but we have a lot more in common with them than the other people trying to manipulate our society as a whole. And once we understand that principle, again, then our children will be able to go back out onto the streets and come in when the street lights go off. And the other predictive analysis, this item here is individualizing ourselves. We're becoming cyborgs, individual computers. And it's really It was really fascinating today to watch the Macy's parade. Did you see the people up on the floats? Right? Some people on the floats, not all of them. Okay. Now remember that people on floats, okay, are hired to be there for the parade and for the people watching the parade. Okay. You know, they're supposed to wave at everybody. Okay. Go back and watch that parade. There are people on the floats like this. Okay. And I don't know if they're live streaming or what. Okay. That they are the parade. They're in the parade. Okay. And they're telling their networks that it's about them. It's about them. Okay. That categorization of individualization, meaning our neighbors don't count anymore, is a dangerous place to be, because that was the mentality between 1933 and 1939. And that's a historical context that we need to look very carefully at. In Auschwitz, I believe her name was Ellen, one of the most brutal guards, a female guard, had desensitized people so much that she used to have a German Shepherd, and she would walk through the concentration camp and send her dog onto people. How do you get to that point as a 21-year-old young lady? How's that happen? And by the way, they hung her in the Nuremberg trials. She was number 9 in the Nuremberg trials. I think our younger generation today has not studied history. They've studied feelings. But not about other people. They've studied concepts about individualism and individualized ideas. And that's how we go from this idea of we're all in this together to unless you believe the way I do. We're in a very precarious place in this country, in the United States, and we're seeing it in the world. Now, my clarity of focus is with children and those that would do harm and homicide investigations. But I also see the bigger picture for my grandchildren, as you do. You know, we're in this together. There's no letter I in the word team. Okay? None. And we're in a place right now where we have the psychiatric community saying, well, yeah, he's thinking of 5-year-olds, but he hasn't done it. He hasn't touched them that we know of, that he's told us about. Remember, we register cars, guns, and offenders. Why do we do that? Why do we do that? Because those actions turned into, or those thoughts turned into actions. If we look at the brutality that Brian Koberger exercised, killing Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, Ethan, he didn't just come up with that. That was a long period of buildup. And I would submit to you, there's a fantasy play in that buildup. And as a result of that, we now have a secondary concept where he makes the front page of newspapers for complaining about bananas. And we have a court system that says, well, you're of a certain way, so therefore you don't have to pay a bail. You can be out on the street, okay, 27 times, 30 times, and you get to murder a child on the subway, set her on fire. That's the danger. That's the danger. And so, is that what we want for all of us in our society? Is that what we really want? And I would submit to you the answer is no. Of course not. Of course not. None of us want any of that for anybody. I don't care, who you are. We don't go to the grocery store and go down the aisle and say, oh, that guy's this, that guy's that, this person's this person's that. We can do it in, the grocery store. We do it every single day. We have more in common with our friends and neighbors and brothers and sisters of maybe even different political thinking. At the grocery store, we don't ask who's who, who's what. And we can do it. We do it very collectively, easily. But when you get into this, the algorithms tell us, and it keeps feeding us all this lane that you find yourself in. Okay? And that's engineering on purpose, in my opinion. And it's, again, I keep going back to collectively, that creates more of this because they don't get to choose. A 5-year-old does not, and a baby does not get to choose who their parents are. They don't get to choose that. I don't know the answer how that happens, to be honest with you. Okay. But we get to choose every single day. We get to choose how we treat each other, how we, are kind, Thank you, Matt, for saying this. We have more in common than we have differences. It's the system that wants us to remain fighting. Yes, thank you. We are stronger together than apart. That is a true statement, my friend. That is a very true statement. And that's, the more we spread that messaging between us is really, really important to understand. Because then that takes this tribalism and this, the singularity of idea away from each other. And then that also opens up the idea of how we can help kids. Hang on, I'm going to text somebody here. All right. So I'm going to try something. I've not tried this, but I'm going to put a link I'm going to put it in the chat, but I can't. I've never done this, so everybody be patient with me. But on this Thanksgiving Day, I'm going to put a link in the chat to come up. But I need to see your face for a moment. And then if you'll just turn your camera off so we're just using the audio, That would be great. But I think it would be kind of cool to maybe have a little call-in session here. What do you think? Are you guys up for that? And I hope this works. Please forgive me. It's the first time I've ever done this. All right. Now, again, if everybody hits this thing, I'm going to get like 50 people at the same time, and I don't want to overload the system. So when somebody jumps out, then the next person jump in, okay? If that works. And that way we can do a modified call-in show here. Okay, so hang on. I'm going to put it in right now. Okay, and then I guess I need to pin this at the top. Whoops, I don't know if I can pin that. Can one of the mods, if you could pin that at the top? All right, so I've got to see your face so I know you're a real person. And then you turn your camera off, and we'll just go with the verbal side of this thing. Yeah, I'm going rogue. Exactly. I'm going rogue on Thanksgiving. But I just thought it was a good it would be a neat idea to kind of try it. Right. And because I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you guys. All right. We'll see if I get any. Oh, man, I got a taker already. Okay. So hang on. Okay, I see you, lady. Awesome. You're awesome. Woohoo. Okay, so turn off your camera. Okay, Mab, I see you guys. Okay, we got two there here. So everybody hang on now. Nobody else yet. Mab, hit the, I see your camera. Awesome. All right, here we go. Lady, you're up first. Lady Chan.
Welcome. Hey, Chris.
Hey.
Hi. Hi. I'm so glad that you dropped the link. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you. This is a first for me. So, yeah, what's on your mind? And happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you guys. We don't celebrate it here, but we still pass on, the celebrations to you guys. So I hope you've had a nice day with your friends and family.
And where are you, in the UK, or where are you at?
Yes, London. Yeah, London, England.
Love it.
Love yeah.
It. What's on your mind?
Oh, everything. I would like to say thank you, by the way. I've been a member for quite a long time now, and you've taught me so much about your law system, and it's still applicable to, UK law as well, just as a detective. I think you're amazing at what you do. I wish you didn't retire. They need you.
Well, you're so sweet. I actually still work,
Okay.
but it's not as aggressive as it used to be, for lack of a better.
Sure. Could I ask you a question, Chris? I'm sorry, just to deviate. I always think about, the things that you've seen. You must have seen some very terrible things. And I always think, like, how are you? Like, how are you? And how do you get through the things that you've seen, the really horrible things that you've seen throughout your career?
Well, that's an interesting question. And if you ask Karen, she only lets me out for 72 hours at a time.
And then reels you back in.
But so how do I do it, right? So, you know what? I don't know what the answer is to that. I feel like I've had this, I guess it's a gift to compartmentalize, right? And this tool right behind me, the guitar, I started playing the guitar in 1972. And that has been such a great place for me to go, and so music has been a very, very important piece of my life.
Right.
When the scenarios would get very, very difficult, I would kind of retreat, into my, Karen knows me like a book, and she just give me that space of, she'll tell me, go play your guitar.
Right.
And so I literally would go play for hours, 2-3 hours, and my brain would then kind of settle down. But there are still things, as like you, I'm sure. What do you do? May I ask?
Well, see, we've got something in kind because I was actually a recording artist
Yes.
here in the UK, and I also have my own. I run a boxing podcast.
Wow.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
What's the name of your, tell everybody what your podcast is, kid.
It's called Come Box with Shan. So my name's Lady Shan. So Come Box with Shan, and I just interview boxers. We just had Anthony Joshua on. I interview all boxers, boxing promoters, trainers, coaches, other pundits. So yeah, and I just do a live stream once a week. But literally, I'm so not here to promote myself. But
Oh, that's
thank
okay.
you.
I'll do it for you. Are you on YouTube too?
Yes, I'm on YouTube. So if you
What's
just type in my name, Lady Shan Boxing,
okay?
you'll find
Lady
me.
Stan Boxing. Awesome.
Yeah. And what I'd like to say on I just got so many thoughts. Do you know what I think? And I think, Chris, I think it's systemic, this paedophilia thing. I think it's now evolved into our magistrates, our judges. I think it was always there. And I think that's why they're trying to have more lenient and remove, like you said, just completely remove the lines in the road so they have a lot of wiggle room. And you have to think to yourself, if you run a country or an army or a military, why wouldn't you want to put your troops with their best foot forward, with everything that can help them win the war? And it just makes me feel so deflated that we live in a system that it seems that they're against us. We're the troops.
Well said, Fred. I mean, it is perplexing as a whole, and I would agree with you that we don't know what that offender looks like, right? And it does, it goes back to when, remember when the internet first started and people started coming for hundreds of miles in that show to catch a predator. Remember that?
Yes, I remember that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they were judges, they were lawyers, they were doctors, they were cops, they were
Yeah.
everything.
Everything.
And
Yeah.
so to your point, which is a very valid point, um, I don't know what the next level is going to be.
Mhm.
I'm concerned that
Yeah.
we are erasing those lines, and that individuals in power, like you're talking about,
Yeah.
are going to control what the next step is, and that's a very dangerous potential site.
Yeah. And just one thing before I go, so that
Yes.
someone else come on. They've been doing this in the prison system here in the UK with convicted, obviously they're in prison, so they're convicted child sex offenders, and they're doing chemical castrations.
Yeah.
Right now it's in trials in the north of England. I live in the south, but because it's in a trial setting, they still have to be okayed by the sex offender. The sex offender has to still say yay or nay that I want this done. But the ones that have said yes, they've seen and then released them, they've seen a significant drop in the area of where they're doing these chemical castrations. So we're waiting on the law to change. I know that only just helps, it doesn't help the world, but do you think that's something to look forward to?
It sounds promising. Listening to you, and it would be really interesting to see how that data plays out. And
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I don't, that's above my pay grade right now. But
Mine too. Trust me.
but how interesting would that be, right?
Yeah, but the only thing, it wouldn't be able to detect the people that haven't committed the crime yet.
Great point. That
Yeah.
and
So
that's
that's what we're
and I'll think about that, right? Tie that into the changes in the DSM manual.
correct.
Man,
Correct. So
great.
yeah.
Well,
Thank you for having me,
well,
by
thank
the
you.
way.
You're
And I'll
awesome. And what's
thank
the
you
name
so
of your
much.
channel again, so everybody knows?
It's just type in Lady Chan, LadyChann boxing, and you'll find me. It'll come right up.
Again,
Yeah, we come and do some boxing sparring.
you're awesome.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for
much
coming on.
for
Okay.
having me.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Mhm.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Man, this is going to work. Yay. Okay, we got Mabs in the house. Mab Investigates. Welcome. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing, Chris?
How are
Nice
you,
to meet
sir?
I'm doing good. Just got home from Seascape Resort in Central California from Thanksgiving.
Oh, wow. So that's awesome. Tell us about that. What's the resort like up there?
Oh, Seascape. It's a beautiful resort on the beach. Multi-level. It's a hotel. It's sprawling, golf course, condominiums. All the rich people live there. And I actually got married there, my first wife. So it was a little sketchy. I walked down that path that I walked down before. My first wife. I got lucky on the second one, Mrs. Mad. She's great.
Is it up in Monterey in the Bay Area?
Just north of Monterey, between Monterey and Santa Cruz.
Did you go see the rock?
Which rock?
Up there? The Monterey, the big rock in Monterey out there in the.
I learned how to scuba dive in Monterey.
Oh, wow. That's a beautiful little town. They have the little. Was it the little?
Carmel?
Yes. Well, Carmel, and isn't Clint Eastwood up there? Wasn't he the mayor of Carmel for a while?
Yep. Yeah. What's that little beach? What's it?
Which beach?
The bay
Pebble
where I
Beach.
go surf or kayak fishing.
Stillwater?
Stillwater Cove.
Oh, yeah.
I used to go kayak fishing out there and then spear fishing.
Wow.
Catch some big lingcod.
I love it. And are you with your name here, Mab Investigations? I know. Do you have a YouTube channel too, right?
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel, Mab Investigates.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about yourself and what's on your mind.
I spent the first half of my life being on the other side of the law.
Uh-huh.
The second half of my life, I spent running an intellectual property firm.
Okay.
And became a patent broker. Did quite well. And
so you were
retired.
buying and selling patents at that time?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
I invented 13 or 14 things that I sold. Then I got into selling other people's patents, company to company, that kind of thing.
Nice.
It was kind of the Wild West days of patent brokerage. Me and my buddy were kind of the first patent brokers for a big company called Intellectual Ventures. And then for the first 2 or 3 years, we were kind of the top dogs there. And then everybody became a patent broker, and it kind of got too expensive to do. So I kind of quit after that. But I retired-ish kind of in 2014, and I had my own consulting firm. And 3 years ago, I got a pretty gnarly facial operation, maxillofacial surgery.
Well, what happened?
I had obstructive sleep apnea, so every 60 seconds I was choking out.
Oh my gosh.
So they cut my upper and lower jaw and extended my face 10 millimeters and then plated it.
Wow.
The operation didn't go great because it was 3 years and 2 months ago, and my face is still numb, and I still got nerve pain, and so it's kind of a nightmare, but it is what it is.
Wow. And are you doing okay right now? I mean, I'm next to you. I can hear her in the background.
As long as I'm concentrating on something, it's better. But if I'm just trying to chill, it can be, some days are good and some days are bad.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to hear that, you're having to obviously make do with what you're going through here. And that's a tough scenario. I can't imagine.
I'm starting to get into enjoy things again. So it's good.
Well, hopefully I've brought you a little comfort, probably not, but just in case, I'll ask, what's on your mind?
So I've been following the Ashley Buzzard case.
Yeah.
That one was strange. That one is strange.
Yes.
Because I don't think if I was LE, I would have set her up like that and got her arrested. I think I would have taken all the pressure off and watched where she went, because it looked like she was packing and ready to go back to wherever Melody was.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't. They arrested her, put the ankle monitor. Of course, they dropped the charges because she appears to be a little smarter than they think she is.
Yeah, and I think the victim there, there was a question whether or not the recording, right, had presented whether or not he was actually held against his will, right?
I don't. My
Right.
gut tells me no.
Yeah, it was a
I mean,
false
he had
imprisonment
keys to
charge,
the
right?
place.
Yeah.
So I don't see how he could have been held against his will. I think they wanted her to, they wanted to pick her up on something.
Yeah, that's what it was. I mean, it was, you got to take a chance sometimes, right? The
Yeah.
old saying. And they probably hooked him up thinking that was going to hooked her up to think it was going to add a little additional pressure into the circumstance. But the court said, no, there's not enough here. And so where do you think she took her? Where do you I mean, the last shot, obviously they believe was still in Utah at the
the word on the street is she gave her to a couple from the zoo.
I heard about that. Yeah, some random couple that she was allegedly supposed to connect with, and
yeah.
You going with that? You believe in that one?
It's pretty sketchy. I'm not sure I am buying that one. I hope she's still with us and she didn't give her to someone with nefarious intentions.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. But I don't know if she has the mental stability to have thought through that outside of maybe a chance opportunity of, hey, I found somebody, because that neck of the woods, there's a lot of people living off grid.
Yeah.
Out there, and could she have turned her over to somebody off grid? That's a scary concept in of itself.
Yeah, it appears she was paranoid that they were going to try to take her from the father's side of the family. Apparently, they tried before.
When they took her first daughter, remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
Lost the first daughter.
Oh.
And then, was it intentional car wreck or something?
I don't recall. I think
what happened was that she intentionally wrecked the car with the child in the car.
Yeah.
So that was the child they took the first time.
Yeah. What say you on the Summer Wells case?
Oh God, the Summer Wells case I got into after I really have never reported myself on the Summer Wells case because there's so many players.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff. There's so much BS, and there's so many unknowns. Now we got this Van Hill Road, Phil Hill. I mean, the hills are piling up. There's a lot of hills here. I have no idea. I think it was probably an accident happened and they covered it up.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably 4 or 5 people involved. I don't know, but that's my gut.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can't disagree as that a possibility, for sure.
Yeah, she told someone during a phone call while she was bawling her eyes out, one of her regrets was, I wish I would have never let her play around that truck. And so I don't know what you can do with that. What truck?
Well, and it's interesting in the phone call that Don made to me that I put up yesterday, he also mentions, did she get run over?
Yeah.
If it's very subtle, but he says it. And so that's what was floating around in his mind as well. Did he have that predisposition to information that it kind of leaked out, right?
But I enjoy watching you, Josh, Gary, Dr. Gary.
They're the best. I told those 2 knuckleheads to be here tonight, but they're out eating turkey. I'm sure of it. But well, thank you so much. It's great meeting you, and I'm so sorry you're having to go through these health issues, but you'll be in our prayers, and
there's a lot of people way worse off than me.
Well, you know what? Now that I know I can do this, like this one-on-one thing here, I'm going to do this more often. And please jump back in, would you?
The panels are cool.
All right, brother. Well, thank you so much.
Go to Mav Investigate, sub up,
Oh yeah. Tell everybody what your channel is.
Well, I do true crime, and then I do fabrication. I restore vehicles and trailers and chippers, and I weld and do all kinds of that. I'm going to have to split off one channel for that and one channel for true crime, but I'm just in my infancy, so.
Awesome. And they can find you at
Mab Investigates.
Mab Investigates. Okay, everybody, get over there and sub.
All right,
This channel.
Chris.
All right, my friend.
Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sir. Thank you so much for coming up.
All right, peace.
See ya. Wow, what a great call that was too. By the way, hit the link and we'll only take 2 at a time. Turn your camera on so I can see you. And then we'll just go to the audio like we're doing here. How cool was that? How cool was that? This is so exciting to meet you guys face to face. It's like going to Crime Con, you know. Please. Oh, thanks, Karen, for putting it up there. I'd love to see you. Love to see you and talk to you. How fun is that? Mab, what an awesome individual. And so sorry that he's having to go through all of that. I'd never heard of that situation. Stop breathing. They had to expand his jaw. Wow. So I'd love to see some of you if you're who's at home with nobody around you. I want to hear from you. I want to talk to you just to see how you're doing. If there's anybody out there. Maybe I can get my wife to come up here on link. Well, I don't know. Maybe Josh, that chicken beak. He just texted me. No takers for the interview room here? No takers? This is the time to learn from each other. Let's see here. Let me go here. Happy Thanksgiving. Great to see you. Yeah, exactly. Love this. Walking watercolors with Micah. I live with 2 men. I'm alone. LOL. Hi, Sean. Okay, I see you. Thank you so much. Yeah, let's shut your camera down and we'll go to the audio here. Hey, I just want to make sure that they're, I'm not getting hit with robots. Hey, I think you have a tab open. So can you just mute the YouTube channel? Just mute you can keep it up, but just mute it. Okay. I see you, Mod. Okay, so Sean.
Yeah, hi, Chris.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm studying. You're part of my.
I'm part of your class? Whoops, I just lost you.
You are part of my studies tonight.
Oh, perfect. Hopefully you get a hey.
Yeah, I study a lot. I am a deliverance minister. I study darkness.
Really? Do tell.
Yes, sir.
Help me understand what that means.
Well, when people cannot come from a very deep past, such as when they get older and they get into all these really ugly lifestyles and drugs and this, that, and the other that come on them, and they just can't get well. It's most of the time has to do with being abused as a child, most generally sexually abused, And I've worked with a doctor by the name of Dr. Douglas Carr. He's my teacher. And I've been doing this for quite a while. And what you do is you get into these 2-hour sessions with a person that wants to be delivered.
Oh,
And there's some very disturbing cases that we have heard about. I haven't had any yet, but I'm just starting in the business. So I know that the Holy Spirit has the right first case for me to take on as the minister. And so I have to study all about, demonic stuff, behaviors, you name it. The more that you know about life, the better minister you are.
wow. And so how did I become your student of study tonight?
Well, if you have something that you would want to be delivered from, if you have something that like haunts you, or that you need to come away from, it's like having a DID disorder. There's levels and levels of trauma that pile up on people. And me, example, I've had so much bad things happen to me. And, the enemy's been after me since I was a young girl, and I'm a child of God. And I love people, and that's what my life, that's what I do. I protect people. I investigate for people. I'm not a investigator, but I just have so much love for people, and especially the prodigals and children. I'm disturbed by the level of things that are going on in the world, and every single time I can sense the demons that they're in that person. And like Charles Kraft is one of the guys I study under, and Derek Prince. And Charles Kraft has a very unique way of delivering someone. He meets with them, talks with them, gets the program going with them. And this one lady, she had like 1,000 demons inside of her.
Wow.
So a lot of these people that you guys investigate, they probably have curses in their family. Um, uh,
Oops, I lost you. You
I
there?
had a encounter with a demon when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
And so deliverance ministers, that's what they do. They help investigators sometimes. There's a deliverance minister society, and my teacher's name is she's out of Texas. So it's a very
Well, that sounds like very fascinating work. And I'm grateful that hopefully that my life has attracted you this evening. I've got like 4 or 5 people stacking up behind me. So thank you so much for calling in.
Yes, sir.
You're the best. And thank you for being a part of the TIR family.
Yes, thank you, sir. God bless you, Chris.
Thank you, young lady. Have a good day.
Bye, Karen.
Okay, the next one, Maud. Maud, welcome to the show. Where are you at?
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, you're loud and clear. How are
I
you?
can't hear you. I don't know what's going on with that.
So you have to adjust your speaker.
Let me just take those off.
That's all right. You work on the speaker.
Okay, I think it's working now. Sorry.
No worries. How are you?
Yeah, I can't hear you. I don't know what's going on. I apologize, Chris.
No, you're fine. You're fine. What's on your mind? Can you hear me?
I've been following you since I can't. I'm just listening to you through the to YouTube right now.
Okay, what's on your mind? Can you hear me?
So I've been following you since the beginning of the Summer Wells case, and I've been really interested in learning about your career, and it's been very interesting to learn through your experience. Do you think the new leads in the Summer Wells case will actually move the case a little bit further?
You know, I hope so. I'm optimistic like you, right? That something will break in this scenario. You just never know what kind of lead they had, and then where that lead will take them. Sometimes they run into dead ends, and then sometimes they have very fruitful experiences that bring additional information. But the question's going to be the next press conference. What are they going to say in the next press conference? And that's going to give us an idea, Maud, of where things are going to go. Now, just quick question: where are you at? What part of the country or the world?
I'm actually from Montreal, Canada.
Oh, I love Montreal. I love Montreal. It's a beautiful city. Do you speak French?
Yes, so that's why I have an accent right now.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, let's cross our fingers, and thank you so much for calling in. Is there anything else that you want to ask? I'm going to go to the next person if you're good. Is there anything else that you want to ask?
No, oh yeah, actually, I'm gonna ask you this. Would you ever consider coming to Canada to work with the Indigenous to try to maybe teach the RCMP
Well,
to do more work, because here I think they're kind of struggling, to be honest.
yes. Well, I tell you that we have actually worked with them through the Bureau of Indian Affairs and through the Cold Case Foundation. We've actually had some investigators from Canada come down to talk about the problems that are up there with the Indigenous women. So it's been an honor to do that. So hopefully that helps your thought process that we are doing some of that, and we're grateful to have that opportunity. Thank you so much for calling in, and grateful that you're a part of the TIR family. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much for calling in, and grateful that you're a part of the TIR family. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris, for everything.
Okay, have a good one. Thank you. Okay, Agatat, you need to turn off your camera, and I'll put you up on the stage. All right. Howdy.
Hello,
How are you?
how are you?
I'm doing well. Where are you calling from?
Hi, how are you? Let me just mute up here.
I'm
I'm in
doing
Canada.
in Canada. What part of Canada?
I'm in Ontario, actually, and I do speak French as well, funny enough.
Oh my goodness. So you're right over the bridge there from Michigan.
Almost. I'm probably about 3 hours away from Detroit, an hour away from Toronto.
Got it. Got it. I've been to both cities and Edmonton. So our my our son used to
Oh,
play.
Edmonton's beautiful. Yeah. We're in the middle of a snowstorm right now, actually.
Oh my goodness. What's on your mind? And thank you so much for taking the link.
Thank you so much. I've been watching you for years. I have an interest in abnormal psychology and how it applies to the criminal justice system. I'll always be an advocate for children. I've been watching you since the Summer Wells case. And let me mute myself there. Silly.
I'm honored.
So anyway, I have two comments, two schools of thought. It seems that there's definitely a parallel between extreme levels of success and somehow degenerate behaviors towards children. We have had many cases in the news in the last couple of years, whether you're talking about Epstein, whether you're talking about the Puff Daddy or whatever he's calling himself these days, R. Kelly. There was the president of a fashion company, Nygaard, his name is, and there's been several others. It would seem that that somehow this level of success equals with they have to have the best cars, the nicest houses, anything money can buy, and somehow that includes depravity towards young children, young women. You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a study that's been done or if it's just us that just these cases get very famous and are all over the TV. So we see them, so they get highlighted. But there needs to be a study here done. And if there is, I'd like to know more about it. And there needs to be some kind of level of, a watchdog, an ombudsman, someone who will watch over the extremely rich people or anybody really with that level of success, so that these depravities don't happen all the time. Because we're seeing these cases, they usually go nowhere. If they get a sentence, it's minimal. There needs something to happen. I don't know why this is happening, but we need to be studying this if we're not. So that was my first comment.
Okay.
And my second comment too was, I think that the world at large, I think we're very naive into thinking, because we were raised like these things are nasty and taboo and we don't talk about them. And it's certainly sickening to me. The depravity against small children. We were taught in school that it was something like the statistic were for boys, 1 in 7 stood the chance of being harmed. And that's just for children. That doesn't mean entering adulthood. And then the statistics were for the girls, something like 1 in 6. I don't know what the statistics are today. I'm assuming they've grown because that was several years ago.
Right.
My issue is if one in person is committing a crime, every 7th time or whatever it is, the population of these maps or pedos or whatever you want to call them, to me, it's all the same. It seems that they're a much higher population that we ever thought were before. It seems as though they're not just, the weird neighbor or the weird monster or the boogeyman or whatever. This is happening all the time. And I would fare to say that I've guesstimated around 10% of the population must be committing the crimes in order to make the statistics, in order to agree with the statistic. If it's 1 in 7, 1 in 6, it's quite possible that a minimum of 10% of the population And when you think about it, when you're taking your kids to Disneyland, the bowling alley, the beach, whatever, 10% of the adults there are probably likely might be of that, that type of people. And if that's the case, then why is this not on every commercial? Why is this not on the news every day instead of what whoever ate for supper? Why aren't we discussing that there's 10% of the population that might be quite corrupt? And our kids need to be aware of that. They need to be aware, however sad it is, it's a delicate subject, that, wow, there's a huge amount of the population that just isn't very good people. Anyway, that's all I had to say. If you have any question, go ahead. Just want to say hello to you and your lovely wife. And I remember one of the mods is Maui girl. She always says hello. So hello, Maui girl. That's it. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, you're amazing. And those are two great concepts or comments to some pretty heavy duty concepts, right? I think depravity comes in all social economic classes. It's not just right the rich, the middle class, the poor, etc. It runs a gamut in all three of those sectors. Now, here would be my first comment to your first concept. The
Agree completely.
the availability of the fuel has become saturated into our society, and it's worldwide now. It's not just in the United States. Back in there were times where municipalities and society and culture would say, well, let's go ahead and contain this through ordinances and zoning, et cetera. And so you would have areas of stores or particular parts of communities that say, well, that's the red district, right? Remember that terminology? Okay. Or they call it the combat zone, where they would have all the depravity and all that stuff.
Yes.
And that would attract, right, individuals, no matter who. Today, it's literally, I told a group of, believe it or not, religious folks, I said, you realize for the very first time on a religious concept that the adversary can come to a sacrament meeting and sit right next to you in your pocket. I said, and I told them, I said, look at the windows on the building. And, they looked around and they were looking at me like, okay, what's he going to say now? I.e., maybe he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. And I said, however, if you look at the windows in the building, count them. Okay. And then I said, now, how many of you here? And there were like 15 or 20 guys. And I said, how many windows are in your pocket? So there's more windows in your pocket to hell than there are on the building. I said, and you in a split second can visit where the adversary lives in a very split seconds. What is preventing anybody in this room from doing that right now? It's a public persona. I said, however, behind the scenes, the mask that we all wear in our secret life, the fuel that's available is what drives this depravity, and which is putting our children at risk that you very eloquently laid out here across the world. Because back in the day, you used to have to go to the counter and say, I'd like to buy that magazine underneath the counter. But today, at a click of a button, you could be sitting in a religious ceremony and that person could be surfing the web in the darkest corners of the earth right in front of you. So for the very first time, the devil has a seat in the church, for lack of a better term. The devil can come to church, depends on who brings him in and lets him through the window. So what's the solution to that? I don't know.
Isn't that the truth?
I don't know what the solution is, other than we somehow have to get the legislators to take a concept of, free searching or free speech in the U.S. I don't know, what your constitution is in terms of your regulation of speech, et cetera. And don't misunderstand me. I'm not an advocate for, stopping any type of free speech. I'm an advocate for regulating illegal material that will bring that depravity out of every individual that decides to go there. That needs to be regulated. Why these X-rated internet, places are not regulated by law is beyond me. But it needs to happen because that's the fuel that continues to drive the conversation and put people at risk, including every other woman, including all women, my wife included, who become objectified because of individuals that are deep into that stuff. So I hope that that's my comment, and I hope it rang true to you. And I'm so grateful that you raised these points that you just.
Thank you so much.
And I'm so grateful that
You're lovely.
It needs to happen. It absolutely needs to happen. And if I do this again, will you come back and call in? Yes.
Absolutely. It's difficult to get people. Oh, absolutely. I'm on a delay. I'm so sorry. I apologize to the audience.
No need. No need. You're delightful. All right. Well, I'm going to go to the next caller, and thank you for being here on the TIR.
But thank you so much for everything you do for bringing these cases to light. Thank you.
Well, thank you. All right. Aloha. Take care. All right, Christina, you're up. You got to turn your camera off. And when your camera's off, we'll get you. There you go.
I figured it out. Yay.
Yay. Hi.
Hi.
What's on your mind?
Well, I'm actually one of the people who are alone, so I'm really happy that you're out there having this, so I have something to do.
Well, you're sweet. Well, it's so great to have you with us. Did you make a turkey dinner, or what did you do? What?
Microwave. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. You didn't blow it up, right?
I know, right? Or set the house on fire or anything.
Oh, you're awesome. Now, where are you from, and where are you calling from?
I'm in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Oh, wow. Hey, you know who was from La Crosse was Brandon Wilson.
Oh, yeah?
Did you know that?
Nope. I know Ed Gein was born here.
Ed Gein was born there too?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Tell me about that.
Before he moved to Plainville, he was born in La Crosse. I'm like, wow, okay, that's interesting.
Wow. I forgot that. I didn't remember that. Now, what do you do up there, may I ask? I don't want to be too personal, but may I ask?
I work for an insurance company. I'll just leave it there.
Oh, very cool. And what brought you to true crime, and what's going on? What's on your mind tonight?
I've loved your channel for years. I watch it often. I'm so excited when I get a notification saying you're on, and I try to get to it. The thing that's on my mind is more on the legal side,
Okay.
especially with here we have the Slender Man girl who just they let her out, and she was in a halfway house, and she cut off her bracelet and managed to escape. And then there's that guy in Oklahoma where he originally had like 70 years, and now all of a sudden he has like a slap on the wrist where he has to just go to counseling every week. And are the judges just being more lenient? I mean, I understand the purpose is rehabilitation, but this seems a little like, can you keep them away?
Yeah, that what a great question. Well, what do you think? What say you?
Oh, I don't want to be like overly judgmental or anything, but if, little old me can kind of tell that these people aren't well, why can't the legal system?
Yeah. I mean, the Slender Girl, what an interesting scenario that was, right? They just recently rearrested her, right?
Yep, they caught her yesterday or the day before in Illinois. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was with some, like, I think he was in his 50s or 40s. That
Is
guy.
43.
Yeah. And she was, I saw the body cam video of when they arrested her where she gave him a false DOB and a false name.
Mm-hmm.
And then she immediately, covered for him because didn't she walk away from like a rehabilitation center or something to that effect?
Yeah, she was in a halfway house. She was just released from a psychiatric institution.
Yeah, go
And
figure.
then they tried to ban she from the house. And then he was sneaking in through the window, which I'm like, okay, what kind of place is this if he can do that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and first of all, I mean, remember her crime. She lured her friend into the woods.
And stabbed her 19 times. Yeah.
God, oh man. Can you imagine, what that crime scene was like and when they got her?
Right.
And
I would be scared to death if I were the victim and
oh,
I heard she escaped.
yeah, she ran for a little bit, right?
Right. Yep.
And they chased her down. And
Hmm.
yeah, just the horror in that, even just picturing that in my mind is just beyond comprehension. But then, the system, right? She got into the system. What do you think about the system? I want your opinion on this. What do you think about how our system is once we get them and they start balancing them out, meaning, sending them to the hospitals, et cetera? What do you feel could have been done differently and not send her to that rehab spot where they put the ankle bracelet on her and she ends up walking out the door? What do you think they should have done?
See, that's just it. Because I mean, she got the approval of, 5 psychiatrists or something,
Right?
but can't, like Wesley Ellen Dodd, which she said earlier, they can just lie to those people and, put on a show or be very charming and say, oh, I'm all better now. And nope. So, I mean, I don't exactly know what a good answer would be. I mean, I'm sure 5 psychiatrists is enough to say, but I don't know. I mean, how did, they get past them? How did she get past them? But it's kind of like, well, how did Brian Koberger get past Catherine Ramsland too? So,
Yeah, you know what? That is a very valid point. And, she recommended him, right, for the school too.
yep,
She wrote a letter. So you're right. How do these guys operate? And sometimes you just don't know,
right.
because we're able to wear, this chameleon part of our personality so well sometimes. And we all have them, right? I mean,
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
they're survival mechanisms sometimes, but not to the evil deviance where, we have the impulses to want to hurt somebody and to do anything like that. And the funny thing, to your point about Koberger, I got a call recently from one of these magazines, and they said, "What do you think about Brian Koberger?" And I said, "Well, did you hear that the guy's complaining about all of his food and his bananas? I guess he's getting bananas with bruises on them and that kind of stuff." And
Like, you get 3 hots and a cot. Stop
I know,
complaining.
right? And
Yeah.
he's driving them crazy in the jail. They're driving him crazy, and he's driving the staff crazy.
Right.
It's kind of like, wow. Yeah. So, these guys and gals that are, serious offenders like that, they're not only dangerous, but what makes them really, really dangerous is the fact that they're able to hide it so well until, they get you exactly where they want you. And then it's a different deal.
Or the certain
It's a different deal.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah. What else you thinking?
Um, Okay, so this I'm not sure about. So how do you feel about minors being charged as adults? That's, I know, kind of controversial right now.
Well, you know what? There was, now I can only measure off of California, right? Where I,
Right.
my,
Mhm.
so in California, if you were under the age of 12 back in the day, you could not, the law recognized and the legislators recognized that you cannot form the intent to commit a crime. That was the rule.
Mhm.
Okay. So children under 12 were never, ever charged. You know, they were put into juvie and then they were putting, you know, shuffled into counseling, et cetera. But from 13, 14, and 15, you know, I 13 and 14 is kind of, you know, kids are still trying to figure out who they are. I mean,
Mhm.
none of us know who we were at 14. I mean, at least I didn't. And then my wife will tell you that today too, that I still don't haven't figured it
Right.
out. But now when you start hitting 15, 16, and you know, you're able to drive a car, for an example,
Mhm.
you know, that's a 22, you know, that's a 2-ton weapon.
Right.
And so I think my feeling on that is you have each of those individuals, children at 15 have to be measured by professionals in, you know, a counseling session of some sort and
Mhm.
determine what their level of understanding is.
Mhm.
Um, because, you know, some kids, you know, have underlining circumstances and problems that just don't, you know, the elevator doesn't always go up.
Right.
And then there are other kids that, oh no, that kid knew exactly how to get on the elevator. In fact, he pressed all the buttons.
Right.
So I
I
think
can
that's where,
see a few of them doing that.
right. You know, and so that's where kind of maybe the court system needs to get better at really measuring are these kids pulling the wool over our eyes or is there something deeper here? And that puts them into the adult category that they're significantly, you know, causing harm to other
Right.
human beings because they want to. What say you on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. So, like the Slender Man girl went in at 12, so I can kind of see where she was a bit young to be charged as an adult, but I don't know that I would want her out at 18 either.
I agree with that a
I mean,
thousand.
she's 23 now, so and she's still
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
and then the kid in Stillwater, Oklahoma was 17, about to turn 18, and they knocked him down to youthful offender, so he didn't get 70 years. But he did some pretty heinous things and he videotaped it. So I don't understand.
I agree with you, Christina. I really do. You know, that's an individual call by the court, and sometimes these judges, you know, lean more towards let's try to rehabilitate without
Right.
recognizing the evil that's sitting in front of them.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I don't want to be like too, like I said, really judgmental in these cases, but when you're, watching all the true crime shows, you're like, what the heck are they thinking?
I know. And when you put your head down on the pillow that night, you need to make sure that stuff's not in your mind. Okay,
Right. Yeah.
you're awesome. Well, thank you so much for calling in. And did I miss anything?
Nope. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you, Christina, and I'm so grateful that you are able to call in with us. I think you're like the fourth or fifth ever that's called it in the interview room. So you're going to go in the halls of infamy here.
Woohoo!
Hey, woohoo. All right.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Aloha. Take care.
Aloha.
Okay. Bye bye. All right, man. This is fun. This is fun. How much longer do you want to go on here, you guys? Because I got a couple more. We got a couple more calls coming in here. Let's see here. Anybody else want to come up? Love to have you on this beautiful Thanksgiving day. Karen and I talked about just hanging out with you, and here we are, just hanging out. let's see, infamy. They all got it from me. Exactly. You know, okay. Folks are enjoying it. Let's go. I'm with you. I've been going 3 hours. I know, right? But when Karen first met me years ago, I think I shared that story with you, or she shared it, but she says, you're like talking to one of my girlfriends. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm a homicide guy. I guess that turned out to be a pretty cool compliment after all, looking down the road. All right. Well, we'll get a couple more here if you want. And if not, then we'll sign off. And I'll do that, but I will do this again. Now that I know how to do this, we will do this again, and we'll kind of make this a regular feature sometime, maybe. What do you think? Yeah, I know, right? I didn't know how to take it, but my sweetheart, and I want to do with Karen up here too. You guys got to get to know her too. She's an amazing, wonderful human being. I mean, you guys have no idea how much I love this girl. She's done so much for me. All right. So looks like we don't have any more takers right now. But we will definitely redo this again. And I'm so grateful that each and every one of you have been with us today and tonight. And I hope you had a blessed Thanksgiving, and that you have been given all the things that you feel that you need. We are grateful here, Karen and I, at the interview room, and so thankful for everything that you give us and support this channel. Again, if we only ask you hit the thumbs up, that way the algorithm picks up, and that you share this with all of your friends and family, wherever they may be. And, whatever religion you are, God bless you. Whatever, whoever you believe in, the universe is on schedule. And the one thing we all have in common is we're all in this together. So as they say in Hawaii, biakamai, which means pay attention. And we'll see you on the next one. Aloha, everybody.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going away. Yeah, we're going away. You and me. Feeling the sun on my face in a while.